Hello, good evening. I am I.B.Lal from L.N. Mishra College of Business Management, Muzaffarpur. In this session, we shall understand requirements gathering or fact-finding techniques in software development. As we know, requirements analysis is vital, is very important for developing a quality software, for developing a correct software. So, the clear-cut understanding of requirements and determination of requirements is very important. For this, we have to understand the system, its components, users, their requirements, information from various areas of the system, of the organization, users' specific choices, specific desires, the details about the processes, the documents, and so on. So it is very, very important to gather these information, these facts from the system, from the organization. And then we have to match these information to the outside world, to the environment. Because every organization has to operate according to the environmental conditions. So we are not going in very much detail about those things. The entire phase is divided into two phases. One is requirements gathering, that is the fact finding, and the second one is requirements analysis. After we gather all the facts, all the information from the system, from the organization, then with these information we analyze what are the exactly requirements of the users. Now here we have to understand one thing. The requirements are of two types basically. One is functional requirement, another one is non-functional requirements. Functional requirements are those that are specified by the users, explicitly specified by the users. And non-functional requirements are those that are not explicitly specified by the users. These are implicit requirements, such as reliability of the software, performance, response times, error messages, and all that. So to develop a correct software, a software engineer, a system analyst is required to understand both functional requirements as well as non-functional requirements. So we are proceeding with various techniques of fact-finding techniques. So for the development of a good quality software, systematic study of the system is necessary. It is mandatory. The study involves understanding the problem, gathering facts, information, and requirements from the user or system. Software requirements analysis begins with the communication between developers and customers. Developers and customers meet together in various ways that we are going to study, and both attempt to understand each other. Developers want to know what are various processes, what are various requirements of the users, and customers attempt to understand what actually the software could do for us. So when they meet together, communication begins, and they, with the common understanding, they clarify the requirements. The methodologies, techniques used to gather information or facts from the present system, for the purpose of learning and understanding the present system is called fact-finding technique. Fact-finding technique is just like a beating, interview, site observation, and there are so many techniques. So from where do we initiate? The entire technique is based upon understanding the system. And then to bridge the communication gap between the developer and the customer. The process of fact-finding aims at getting answers or information to set up some general, that are context-free or high-level questions that lead to basic understanding of the problem, gradually followed by detailed or lower-level questions leading to in-depth understanding of the system processes. So in the beginning, the system analysts or software engineers with the customers attempt to know the high-level requirements, the basic understanding of the problem. Unless the problem is clear, the requirements cannot be perfectly determined. So initially they attempt to understand the basic level questions, and that lead to in-depth understanding of each processes of the system. In beginning, some basic questions that could be raised, there are some samples here that could be raised, are: what is the problem for which we have to do work, we have to develop software? Why do you want to resolve the problem that you have explained? Who is behind the request? Means upon whose request you have come to me for developing the software, for resolving your problem. Who will use this solution when we give you the solution in the form of software? Who will use the solution? After you get the solution, what problems will this solution address? What benefit do you expect from the solution? In which environment the software will be used? What will be the environment? That is very important. Environment is very important in which the software has to be used. So the software engineers have to understand well the environment. Is there any performance criteria or issues based on which you can say that the software is very good or the software is not very good? So what are the issues? Please tell us, so that we can be understanding your performance criteria, and then we would be doing in that direction only. What are the various constraints that the software will have to meet during operation? How would you characterize solution as a good or bad? So these are some basic questions that software engineers raise during the communication between with the customers. Now the techniques that we must commonly follow for the development of the software to gather the requirements are: first is meeting, that is also called task force meetings, or technically it is known as FAST. That stands for Facilitated Application Specification Technique. Second one is interviews. Third one is direct observation or direct inspection, or on-site observation or inspection. So many documents are studied that may be classified into internal documents and external documents like bills, receipts, manuals, and so on. And finally, the questionnaires, very good technique to gather information, questionnaires. So one by one we shall be studying every fact-finding technique. So now we take on meeting or FAST, facilitated application specification technique. This is a meeting between developer and customer. The senior executives of both the parties, developer and customer, sit together at a neutral place or an intermediate place, not the site of developers, not the site of customers. Intermediate place is selected, opted by both the customers, agreed upon the intermediate place, developers and customers, and they sit together and discusses various aspects of the problem. They ultimately agree on the various aspects of the software that has to be developed. So this encourages the creation of a joint team of customers and developers who work together to identify the problem, propose elements of the solution, negotiate different approaches, and specify a preliminary set of solution requirements. Now the techniques of FAST is that how is it conducted? We shall be understanding it. Both the developer and customer identify an intermediate site, fix a date, and then they sit together to conduct the meeting with neutrality. A third person is opted, is selected. Mostly they are respected, honorable person of the society. Not necessary that they should be from the computer field, they can be from any field. Who has to control the meeting? That can be even customer or developer or an outsider. So that one is agreed upon by both the customer and developer. Okay, the person must be non-biased, neither towards the customer nor towards the developer. Just like he is a judge. Before meeting, the rules of meetings are framed. Rules of meetings are framed. An agenda is suggested and prepared, which is distributed among the participants, every participant. So that what are the various points to be discussed in the meeting? It may be formal as well as it may be informal. Formal means to cover all important points. Informal means to encourage free flow of ideas. There should not be restrictions very much, that the limitations as such. Free flow of ideas are very necessary. Okay. Among the developers, one junior software engineer, junior system analyst, is appointed as recorder, whose job is to record the meeting proceedings. Recording mode of the meeting may be audio-visual documents, whiteboards, green boards, PowerPoint presentations, and like that. Okay. So, what is the goal of the FAST techniques? Is to identify problem, to identify high level requirements, macro level requirements, the proposed solution, identification of constraints, setting up various performance criteria, and finally to prepare draft specification. The FAST team may be comprised, basically FAST team is comprised of developer as well as customers. Now in detail we can understand FAST team may be comprising representatives from the software, senior developers from the software side, hardware engineering side, personnel from the marketing of the customer side, manufacturing and finance, R&D, and like that. It is also to be kept in mind that it should not be very much populated, otherwise the motto of the objective of the meeting would fail. Now we come to the first process. Initial meetings between the developer and customer occur, and basic questions and answers help to establish the scope of the problem and the overall perception of a solution. Overall perception of a solution. Out of these initial meetings, the developer and customer write a 1 or 2 or 3 pages product request. Now the product request is distributed to all attendees, all participants of the meeting before the meeting date, so that every attendee could well understand. Each first attendee is asked to make a list of objects that are part of the environment, other objects that are to be produced by the system, and objects that are used by the system to perform its functions. Each attendee is asked to make another list of services, that is the functions and processes that manipulate or interact with the objects. Now finally, lists of constraints and performance criteria are also developed. The attendees are informed that the lists are expected to reflect each person's perception of the system. Okay. Then begins the meeting. In the first meeting, normally the basic questions are asked, high-level questions are asked. The first topic of discussion is the need and justification for the new product. Once agreement has been established, each participant presents his list of discussion. Presents his list for discussion. And the question and answer session continues from both the sides. The list given by each participant is pinned on the wall so that everybody can observe it, can view it. So they can raise their points and ideas during the meeting. In the meeting, the critiques and debates are prohibited. Each individual list is combined to one list. In this list, normally no deletions of anything is made. And finally, a consensus list is prepared on each topic area. Because the objective is to develop a consensus list, okay, on each topic, whether it is object, services, constraints, and performance. Okay, so once the consensus list has been completed, the team is divided into smaller sub-teams. Once the consensus list is prepared, the entire team is divided into number of sub-teams. Okay, divided into number of sub-teams, smaller sub-teams. Each team works to develop a mini specification. Each team is said to develop a mini specification which is an elaboration of the word contained in the list. So we can see here the meeting. One side is customer, another side is developer. This is presenter, maybe from customer side, maybe from developer side. They can come prepared with the PPTs. And here is the facilitator. In case of any confrontation, any conflict, the final verdict of the facilitator is to be followed by both the parties, customer as well as developer. And the entire meeting proceeding is recorded by the recorder, who is a junior system analyst. Now, each mini specifications are distributed to each attendee. Additions, deletions, and elaborations, if required, are made in these mini specifications. That may uncover the meeting. The members may uncover new objects, new services, new constraints, or performance criteria during the discussion. Now, for the next meeting, issue list is prepared. Each attendee prepares list of validation criteria, and a consensus list of validation criteria is also prepared. One or more participant, finally at the end of the meeting, one or more participant prepares complete draft specification onto which both the parties sign, developer sign, customer sign, facilitator sign, and also the recorder signs. So the conclusion of FAST is, it is not the only solution. It is not a panacea for requirements gathering. In the FAST, we basically gather the high level requirements, the macro level requirements, not the details. Okay, so because these are senior executives, and for the details they say that the go to the stakeholders, the person who is responsible for accomplishing a particular task. In this meeting, only the common issues are discussed. No personalized issues are discussed. A team approach provides consensus-based viewpoints on many issues. Instantaneous discussion and refinement are also done in this meeting. Now, this is a concrete step toward development of specification. This gives concrete step toward development of requirements specification, which is a good approach in case of confrontations. So this FAST meeting is actually very exciting, very good approach for bringing in the consensus on certain specifications, and this avoids any kind of conflict after the product is being delivered, because both the parties, developers and customers, agree upon the requirements they need. Okay, so in the next session, in the next class, we shall understanding other techniques, interviews, on-site observation, and all that. Thank you.